Daniel had never seen his father rest for even a single day. In the old city where narrow streets stayed crowded from morning till midnight, everyone knew Advocate Raman as one of the smartest lawyers in town. His black coat looked old, his office walls were cracked, and the wooden chairs inside the office made strange sounds whenever a client sat down. But people still trusted him more than the rich lawyers sitting in modern buildings. Raman was not rich, yet he carried himself with dignity. He believed that respect was more important than money. However, behind that respected image, he carried a silent dream in his heart. He wanted his only son, Daniel, to become a bigger lawyer than him. Raman spent his entire life savings on Daniel's education. Sometimes he skipped meals just to pay university fees on time. He sold his wife's jewelry, borrowed money from friends, and worked late nights handling difficult cases only so his son could study in the best law college in the country. Daniel knew his father loved him deeply, but as success slowly entered his life, he forgot the sacrifices hidden behind that love. After graduating from university, Daniel joined his father's office. Unlike Raman, Daniel was young, confident, and modern. He spoke fluent English, wore expensive suits, and impressed clients with his sharp arguments. Within a few months, his name started spreading across the city. Newspapers mentioned him. Big businessmen wanted him as their lawyer. Even senior advocates praised his intelligence. Raman watched all this silently with proud eyes. Every night he thanked God for making his son successful. One evening, after returning from court, Raman opened an old dusty cabinet and took out a thick file covered in dirt. The file looked ancient, and its papers had turned yellow with time. He placed it carefully on Daniel's table and said softly, "Son, this is my oldest case. I want you to handle it now." Daniel opened the file and saw the name Tim David written on the first page. The case had been running for nearly 20 years. Daniel smirked confidently and asked, "Abu, why is this case still unfinished after so many years?" Raman simply smiled and replied, "Every case has its own time." Daniel believed his father had become old-fashioned. He thought modern intelligence could solve anything quickly. Without understanding the deeper details of the case, Daniel jumped into action. He studied the file only for a few hours and realized the accused man could easily be released if the arguments were presented cleverly. Daniel saw this as a golden opportunity to become even more famous. The next morning, he entered the courtroom with unmatched confidence. His powerful arguments shocked everyone present there. Witnesses became confused, loopholes in the law were used brilliantly, and within a single hearing, Daniel managed to win the case. The accused man walked free after 20 long years. Outside the court, reporters surrounded Daniel. Cameras flashed around him while people praised his talent. Daniel felt like a king. He believed he had achieved something impossible. His chest filled with pride as he imagined how impressed his father would be after hearing this news. That evening, Daniel rushed toward his father's office with excitement shining in his eyes. Raman was quietly reading some papers when Daniel entered proudly and placed the case file on the table. "Congratulations, Abu," he said loudly. "The work you could not complete in 20 years, I solved in just one day. Now you must admit that your son has become a greater lawyer than you." Raman slowly removed his glasses and looked at Daniel carefully. There was no happiness on his face. Instead, there was disappointment hidden deep inside his eyes. Daniel's smile slowly faded. He expected praise, not silence. After a few moments, Raman asked calmly, "Which work are you talking about?" Daniel laughed proudly and replied, "The Tim David case, of course. I got him released today." "The case is finished forever." Raman leaned back on his chair and stared at the ceiling for a moment. Then he looked back at his son and said only one word, "Foolish boy." Daniel froze completely. Those words hit harder than any insult. He could not believe what he had just heard. After receiving praise from judges, reporters, and senior lawyers, his own father was calling him foolish. Anger and confusion mixed together inside him. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt his father might actually be jealous of his success. The office became silent. Only the sound of the old ceiling fan echoed through the room while Daniel waited impatiently for an explanation. Daniel's heart burned with confusion and anger. He stared at his father, unable to understand why the man who always prayed for his success was now insulting him. His voice became heavy as he finally spoke. "Abu, I won the case. Everyone in court praised me. Reporters called me the future of law. How can you call me foolish after such a big victory?" Rahman remained silent for a few seconds. He slowly stood up from his chair and walked toward the old window beside his desk. Outside, the streets were crowded with people rushing toward their destinations, but inside that small office, time itself felt frozen. Rahman folded his hands behind his back and said softly, "Son, success without wisdom becomes destruction." Daniel frowned. Those words made no sense to him. In his eyes, winning was everything. He had grown up watching famous lawyers becoming rich through difficult cases. Now he had finally achieved what many young advocates only dreamed about. He believed his father should feel proud instead of disappointed. Rahman turned around and looked directly into Daniel's eyes. "Do you know why that case stayed alive for 20 years?" he asked. Daniel replied confidently, "Because you could not solve it properly." Hearing this answer, Rahman gave a painful smile, not because he felt insulted, but because he realized his son still did not understand the world. Rahman slowly sat back on his chair and opened the old file again. He touched its worn-out pages like someone touching memories of a lifetime. "This case," he began quietly, "fed our family for 20 years. Daniel's expression changed slightly, but he still stayed silent. Rahman continued, "Every few months there was another hearing. Every hearing brought money. With that money, I paid your school fees. With that money, I bought your books. With that money, I kept food on our table when times were difficult." This office survived because of this case. Daniel's confidence slowly began to weaken. Rahman's voice grew heavier with emotion. "When your mother became sick years ago, it was this case that paid for her treatment. When you wanted to study law in the best university, it was this case that made it possible. Even the suit you wore today in court was bought using money earned from this very file." Daniel looked down at the file silently. Suddenly, it no longer appeared like ordinary papers. It felt like a hidden history of sacrifices he had never noticed before. Rahman continued speaking. "I gave you that case not because I wanted you to finish it quickly. I gave it to you so you could build your future slowly and wisely. But in your hunger for fame, you ended everything in one day." Daniel's throat became dry. The excitement he carried earlier was slowly turning into regret. Rahman sighed deeply and said, "That case was like a hen that lays golden eggs. Instead of protecting it and benefiting from it wisely, you slaughtered the hen itself." Those words pierced directly into Daniel's heart. For the first time, he understood what his father truly meant. He realized that intelligence alone was not enough to survive in the real world. Wisdom, patience, and understanding were equally important. Daniel suddenly remembered his childhood days. He remembered seeing his father returning home late at night, exhausted but still smiling for his family. He remembered his father pretending not to be hungry so Daniel could eat properly. He remembered hearing his mother cry quietly because of financial problems, while Rahman continued fighting cases day and night without complaining. Tears slowly gathered in Daniel's eyes. Until this moment, he had only seen success from the outside. He had never understood the sacrifices hidden behind it. He now realized his father never failed to solve the case. Instead, he had managed it carefully for years because it kept their lives stable. Daniel felt ashamed of his arrogance. The pride that filled his chest earlier had completely disappeared. He slowly sat down on the chair opposite his father and whispered, "I thought winning quickly meant greatness." Rahman nodded sadly and replied, "Many young people think the same. They run after fast success without understanding long-term consequences. Real wisdom is not about how quickly you finish something. It is about understanding its value before making decisions." Daniel's eyes became wet with regret. He imagined how proudly he had entered the office earlier, believing himself superior to his father. Now he felt smaller than ever before. The room once filled with his confidence now felt heavy with silence and guilt. Raman softened his tone and said, "I am not angry because you won the case. I am disappointed because you acted without thinking deeply. A lawyer's job is not only to argue in court. A lawyer must understand people, situations, timing, and consequences." Daniel lowered his head completely. For the first time in his life, he truly felt like a student sitting before a master. Outside, the evening sun slowly disappeared behind the buildings while darkness entered the city. Inside that old office, however, a different kind of light had finally entered Daniel's heart, the light of understanding. That night, Daniel could not sleep at all. He sat alone in his room, staring silently at the ceiling while his father's words echoed repeatedly inside his mind. The same victory that had made him feel powerful a few hours earlier now felt like the biggest mistake of his life. He realized that success achieved without understanding can sometimes become failure in disguise. For years, he had believed intelligence was enough to conquer the world. He thought quick victories made a person superior. But now he finally understood why experienced people valued patience more than speed. Around midnight, Daniel walked toward the balcony and looked at the sleeping city. The streets were quieter now, yet his thoughts remained loud and restless. He remembered his childhood in detail. He remembered rainy nights when electricity would disappear, but his father still continued reading law books under candlelight. He remembered how Raman never bought expensive clothes for himself, yet always ensured Daniel had the best things possible. He remembered one painful memory clearly: the day his father sold his old motorcycle because Daniel's university fees were due. At that time, Daniel was too young to understand sacrifice. But tonight every memory returned like a sharp knife cutting through his heart. Tears slowly rolled down his face. He finally understood that his father's success was not measured by luxury or fame. It was measured by endurance, responsibility, and wisdom. Early the next morning, Daniel reached the office before his father for the first time in years. The office looked exactly the same as always: dusty shelves filled with files, old furniture, weak lighting, and faded paint on the walls. Yet today Daniel saw beauty inside that simplicity because every corner of that office carried proof of his father's struggle. When Raman entered the office, he seemed surprised to see Daniel already sitting there quietly. Daniel immediately stood up. His eyes looked tired, but there was honesty in them now. Without saying anything, he walked toward his father and held his hands tightly. "Abu," he whispered emotionally, "forgive me. Yesterday I spoke with pride, but today I understand how blind I was." Raman looked at his son silently. Daniel continued, "You spent your entire life building my future, and I judged you without understanding your sacrifices. I thought you were weak because you kept the case alive for years, but now I know you were wiser than me." Raman's eyes softened. He placed his hand gently on Daniel's shoulder and replied, "Mistakes do not destroy a person, son. Refusing to learn from them does." Those words touched Daniel deeply. In that moment, he realized true greatness was not about defeating others. It was about improving yourself after realizing your flaws. From that day onward, Daniel changed completely. He still worked hard as a lawyer, but now he listened more and spoke less. He stopped chasing quick fame blindly. Instead, he started understanding the deeper value behind every decision. People still admired his intelligence, but now they respected his maturity as well. Slowly, Daniel became not only a successful lawyer, but also a wise human being, just like his father wanted him to become. Years later, whenever young lawyers asked Daniel about the secret of success, he would smile and tell them, "Never let pride make decisions for you." Sometimes the thing that looks small today becomes the reason your life survives tomorrow, and every time he said those words, he remembered the old case file that taught him the most valuable lesson of his life. Raman also felt proud seeing the transformation in his son. He no longer worried about Daniel's future because he knew wisdom had finally entered his heart. The relationship between father and son became stronger than ever before. They worked together in the same office for many years, helping people and solving cases side by side. But now Daniel never made decisions in haste. Before every important step, he would first think carefully about its long-term consequences. The painful mistake that once filled him with shame eventually became the reason he matured into a better man. In life, many people destroy valuable opportunities because they only focus on immediate success. They fail to understand that patience and strategy often create bigger rewards over time. Daniel learned this truth the hard way, but once he understood it, it changed his entire life forever. Sometimes the greatest lessons do not come from books, universities, or victories. They come from mistakes, regret, and the wisdom of those who sacrificed everything for us.